how much I included of my trip to Spain, which took place from December 4th through 10th, 2015, in my book Losing Lena May, A Cancer Caregiving Memoir, varied drastically from the very first draft to the end product. At one point, I got rid of the entire trip from the book because it didn't feel super pertinent to the overall narrative. However, by the end, I struck a balance and kept in some key moments that I felt like hit on the themes that a lot of caregivers feel when they step away from their loved one who are suffering, mainly that they have a tremendous amount of guilt for doing something for themselves. In this video, I'm going to share a few events that transpired that didn't end up making the final draft of my book. So a lot happened before and after the moment I included for December 5th when I'm at LL Bar and really struggling to let go and have fun like everyone else around me. So earlier in that evening, Antonio and I had gone to dinner, and then after that, we went to the hotel of someone he knew from Washington, D.C. that happened to be in town as well. I'll call him Stuart. And Stuart really wanted everyone to do Molly that night as we went out to the bars and ultimately would end up at this big party. Well, I told them I did not want to do Molly. Well, Stuart did not like that answer and tried to force a dose in my mouth, going as far as putting it on my tongue and trying to close my mouth and forcing me to swallow it. I immediately spit it out, threw it back at him, and was so pissed off. So the night did not start particularly well. That is part of the reason why I was having a hard time letting go when I was at LL Bar. I had this weird moment with some guy that I had just met, and I didn't know what his intentions were or if he was a good person. At around 2 a.m., we migrated to this massive party that I was not remotely interested in because I was not on any substances. So there was all this flashing light and EDM music and people who were shirtless that were clearly on steroids. Normally, it would be really fun and exciting, but I was super jet lagged and wanted to just crawl up into bed and go to sleep, especially after what happened with Stuart. But instead, I ended up talking a lot with Stuart's friend Joseph, who had also declined the Molly. He was a really nice guy, so I just kind of clung on to him all night. After a couple hours, we decided to leave the party, and because Stuart and Joseph were staying within walking distance, we all decided to go to their hotel. Also, Stuart and Antonio had found a random Spaniard to have a threesome with, so they invited him back. That left Joseph and I to be able to share a chaise lounge in the hotel room as they went off into the sealed primary bedroom. And as attractive as I found Joseph to be, and under normal circumstances, I would have wanted to hook up with him. We had also really hit it off over the course of the evening. I just wanted to go to bed, and I told him that repeatedly, but we were two people who are over 6 feet tall sharing a chaise lounge, so we had to cuddle each other. And while we were doing that, Joseph starts kissing my neck and starts feeling me up and migrating his hands into my pants. I'm protesting this entire time. I am just saying, I want to go to sleep. I don't want to do anything. I want to go to sleep. But he did sexually assault me. He did things that I did not want to have happen. Eventually, he listened to me and stopped what he was doing. I did manage to get a couple hours of sleep, but it was not remotely good quality. When Antonio woke up, the sun was shining through the curtains. We left that hotel room. We didn't see Stuart and Joseph the rest of the trip. I did receive a Facebook message from Joseph later that day apologizing for taking it a step too far. And I want to be clear, yes, Joseph did sexually assault me, but I was not physically hurt, so I wasn't reeling from that experience in the way that maybe someone else would have been. So that's the reason why I am seemingly normal later in that day when I'm at the train station with Antonio. In fact, I was pretty peppy by comparison to Antonio, whose serotonin was depleted from the Molly that he had taken the night before. In Barcelona, we went to my first and last circuit party, which I found incredibly overwhelming because I was so inadequate compared to all of the ripped bodies that were shirtless and dancing. I happened to meet up with a guy who I had matched on Tinder with, who was visiting from Azerbaijan. I went back to the Airbnb with him and stayed the night. The next day, I had a Grindr hookup with a dentist in Barcelona. Then Antonio had another hookup in addition to the one that I had included in the book, where I was leaving him in the hotel room and going to talk to my mom on FaceTime to hear her latest updates. And then we went out with this guy that I had also talked to on Grindr. I had convinced Antonio to come along and hang out with us because he said that there were these cool parties, but they were a total bust. And the guy was clearly only interested in me and was just focusing focusing on me. And so Antonio felt like a third wheel, got mad at me and left, and was mad at me all the next day, which obviously is not included in the book. It was a very male-focused, hookup-driven trip in a way that is not remotely captured in my book, which obviously makes a lot of sense considering that it is a cancer caregiving memoir. And finally, back in Madrid, Antonio and I have this conversation that feels just as relevant in 2025 as it did 10 years ago. The pace of life here is just so much slower, Antonio says, running his hand through the leaves on a low-hanging branch. I feel the people here appreciate life a lot more than we do in the States. Like, they savor the moment so much more. Yeah, there's such a pressure in America to achieve and do anything you can to make your life better for yourself. That's literally the American dream. Do you think the American dream is even attainable anymore? No, I don't. Same. The majority of Americans slave away day in, day out, and can never overcome the circumstance for which they were born. Yep, the inequality of the wealth distribution just keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's all so depressing. And here we are complaining about the hotel breakfast not being free because of your elite status, Antonio says, shamefully rubbing his forehead. Hey, at least you can own and recognize privilege. A lot of people can't. Yeah, true. The fact that we have complained about literally anything on this trip is actually ridiculous when you stop and consider that so many people in this world are barely making enough to feed themselves or their families. Seriously. But don't worry, Donald Trump, an alleged billionaire, is going to fix everything, I say, shaking my head. Alleged is right. He's scamming those poor, desperate people, and it's working. Look at how many Make America Great Again hats he has sold. Maybe we should just stay here. For real. As I've concluded in the other videos I've uploaded about the cut content from Losing Linda May, it's obvious why none of this stuff made the final draft of my book, but the experiences did shape this trip for me. However, it wasn't over. I was heading to Athens, Greece by myself. Antonio is heading back to the States. So in the next video I'll be releasing on December 11th, I'll be talking about the content that I ended up cutting from the days when I was in Athens. So hit subscribe, leave any questions in the comments. The link to my book is in the description, and I will see you all then.